So now an official welcome. Welcome to Satsang. I'm so happy to see you all here, and welcome to everyone who's joining us around the world. Today our friend Steve is here again, so there may be possibilities for sharing or for questions from you here or from the friends around the world. Around the world you can write in the comments, and Steve will read some of the questions if they're coming, and maybe we can answer. Today when I was tuning into our Soma and the Satsang, it's interesting what came, and I think it's more like a reflection of the world than of where we are personally. But I thought it's a very beautiful possibility to explore a little deeper. When we listen to the news, I don't know if you followed that, but our Mr. Trump has been impeached the second time, first time in history. All this and the invasion of the capital and so on, all this is symptomatic for identification with the false sense of self. So what came to me today was the yellow pomander, because in a way there's a lot of misunderstanding about being yourself, about asserting who you are, which is a very helpful thing if you assert who you truly are. It's a very disturbing thing if you believe in your separate story. And in a way, to a certain extent, we all do that. And the moment something triggers us that makes us identified or appears to make us identified with separation, we suffer. So when we look at it from this point of view, all the wonderful power trippers that we see around the world are actually intensely suffering, but not aware of it. And we are maybe modified sufferers. We have already a certain level of presence and awareness. So why yellow? What does that have to do with yellow? If you like the idea of chakras, of energy centers, the yellow is the sun plexus, the solar plexus, the sunlight. And in the solar plexus we carry the biggest potential for presence, and we carry the biggest potential for suffering. So what's the suffering part? Usually I don't want to give too much attention to the content of psychology in satsang, because the content of psychology, especially of psychology where we are suffering, is a strange phenomenon. Because the moment, forgive me, there's a few therapists here, but I include myself also. The moment you have a problem and you put your attention to the problem gets bigger. Do you have that? Can you relate to that? No? And then we go to a therapist, and the therapist also puts his attention on the problem. And then the problem gets even bigger. And then we have something to work with. To get rid of something that wasn't real in the first place. Now, Don't feel judged right now. I'm including myself. We all have a lot of unconscious areas in our third chakra. You want to know a few of them? Yeah? Okay. Is anybody comparing yourself with anybody else? Yeah? Good recipe for suffering. Yeah? It gets worse if you think you are superior. Does anybody think they are superior sometimes? You know? Especially, I mean, it's very easy to be superior to Trump. Yeah? Yeah? Which is the same page, just turned around, and underneath is inferior. Does anybody feel inferior sometimes? Yeah? It's such a habit, it's such an automatic conditioning we got, you know, maybe already in childhood because you have an elder brother like I had, or you are elder, and so constantly comparison, competition. Is anybody judging? Yeah. Any judgment creates suffering. Why? Because you separate from an energy that you don't even see what you want to separate from, so that you can maintain a separate identity. Can you relate to that? Because then, especially when we become spiritual, we can start saying, my truth is. There's no such thing as my truth. Either there's truth, or there's my interpretation of a fact. So what do we have? Comparison, competition. Competition. Anybody competing? Yeah. And competition creates this. In competition, if you look at all the games of Western society, maybe Eastern society also, they are all suffering games. Forgive me, the cricket fans and the football fans. All competitive games need a loser and a winner. The loser suffers because he's identified with inferiority. The winner doesn't know that yet that he's suffering because he has won. So he's bigger. Until somebody else wins over the winner, and then there's suffering again. Now it looks like we all play that personality game. And when you actually start fighting with it and try to not be competitive, does it work? It doesn't work. No? It works to a certain extent in your image, and then especially on the spiritual path, it's a big trap, because then if you are spiritually superior, you become holier than thou. No? If you have a closer connection to God than I have, or the priests have, there's suffering. So what do we have? We have comparison, competition, judgments, inferiority, superiority. Are we getting heavy already? Or are we somehow enjoying to see? Now, there's a good one. Blame. Is anybody blaming? Yeah? Somebody else's fault, and somebody is responsible for how you feel. It's a wonderful game in relationship. No? You make me feel. And now we're coming into very slippery ground, because every love song says, "You make me feel so good." Now that's a recipe for suffering, because then you also make me feel so bad if you don't, fulfill my expectations. Deep breath. It's okay. We somehow already know that this is not who I am. Or do we know, or not? Do you really think that this is who you are? So it seems to be a human condition in unconsciousness that we start struggling with the content of our unconsciousness in the third chakra. And then we have all these strategies to protect ourselves, to defend ourselves. Anybody has that? Like argument, fighting, violence, cutting off, retreating into your own cave, getting depressed, and so on. We have so many strategies to protect a structure that has not been there when we were born, or maybe only in traces through the conditioning in the womb. And then as we grow up, in the phases of our growing up, it is very natural that, the first years we are just exploring the body, learning to use this body as a little child. And then the next phase is learning social behavior and emotional expression. And then comes the fateful time of puberty. And in puberty, the ego wants to develop itself. The third chakra starts testing. I don't know if some of you have puberty children or had children in puberty. You remember? It wasn't easy. No? There's so much power struggles. Now this is an important phase, but unfortunately most of us have not grown past the puberty power struggle phase. Sorry. Of course, present friends are accepted. No? So if everything would have gone fine, if we go for the sequence of the chakras, body, emotion, power, we would, latest with 18, we would end up in the heart. But not so many have ended up in the heart, and we get very easily pulled back down into identification, into struggle. Now, what is actually behind that identification, that ego structure, that need to protect yourself, that need to set boundaries, that need to assert your independence? There's something quite important behind it. No? How I see it, it's the need to recognize that we are an absolute unique being, that we're actually incomparable. Did you ever think of that? That there is no one like you in the whole universe. And that's the beauty. It's the same thing with flowers. There's no one same flower. There may be a same family, but every flower is different. Same here. Every human being is different. Now, doesn't that insight make it totally absurd to compare yourself? But it's this tiny little step from the separation that creates a sense of me to the recognition of our uniqueness. And that recognition has, of course, many wonderful branches, which means all our physical skills, which we can develop more and more through whatever, gymnastics, sports, yoga, exercise. We can grow and develop the colors of our emotional body, emotional maturity, where we dare to receive our own sensitivity rather than comparing it with others. Receive our own feelings. Open to the possibility that in one moment I can melt with somebody, and the next moment I can be alone, and both is fine. So this is the first two chakras. And the third chakra, if we honor our uniqueness, we also honor our special gifts, that we can do things, we can make things happen. That's the energy we need in the yellow. And when we do something and we achieve it, we can take it in the ego, or we can just take it into the joy of expression, which is in the yellow. The joy of celebration. The yellow is solar plexus, it's the sun, the joy of our own inner light. And the joy of our charisma. Third chakra, shining outward, is very charismatic, it's very magnetic, on the positive and on the negative side. Hitler was a very good example on the negative side. Can you imagine how many millions of people followed him that normally are intelligent and become total dodos? And nowadays, Mr. Trump. But also, a charismatic person is very attractive when he or she is connected to all the other expressions of life. And so on. So we only reach to the third chakra, then comes the heart. We have a unique heart. The core of the heart is empty. That's where love is. That's where unconditional love is. But the expression of love is so unique in all of us, isn't it? So unique. So how can we compare? Even lovers cannot compare the level of love they share with each other, because it's different, it's unique. And our creativity and our clarity, our insight, our capacity to discriminate, our awareness. I say our, but it's an absolute unique color in every one of us. It's obvious, isn't it? It's not difficult to understand. Now, wouldn't it be really beautiful and amazing if, instead of parking in an automatic unconscious reaction through the third chakra, through comparing, competing, blaming, judging, this is what's coming. What is closer to me than that? And suddenly you find something that, in these modern groups that are offered everywhere around the world about creating your own reality, and that you can think and then become a millionaire. There's a lot of beautiful things and nonsensical things that are offered. But I had a nice thread, and now I lost the thread. Where was I?
Solar plexus, so you have to go up now.
We just reached the solar plexus. You want to go a little higher?
Yeah.
Quickly.
Please.
It was going from the courses around that are being presented from...
From that's right, from creating your own reality. Well, we are always incredible creators when the little me is not there. When the attention on the little identity that tries to keep itself in the safe package allows the package to open and move into the unknown. Because the unknown is the space from which the whole universe has been created. Why not the unique expression of life through this body-mind? But the discovery is only possible by turning in. As long as we are out with our attention, we are trapped, because there's nobody home taking water from the source. So this is why we're sitting here in satsang, or we meditate, or we do yoga, or we do all these things. It's basically to come back to the unknown source of being. I call it unknown source because of formless source. It's not something we can see, feel, sense, taste, smell. It is much deeper than that. And this is for me the most important piece, to always remember and remind myself and remind you guys and remind everybody who wants to hear it. Don't remind anybody who doesn't want to hear it. It doesn't work. But some people want to hear it. That we are infinite beings with the capacity of infinite joy, of deep peace, not by achieving peace, but by unveiling peace, not by achieving love, because it's not outside of us, by unveiling love that is already here in the core of our being. All these wonderful things that we long for, love, peace, connection, silence, creativity, expression. It's all here. So that's the yellow pomander. It's very, very potent. And why I think it can be helpful to be aware of the limitations is not to get rid of comparison. It doesn't work. It's not to become a goody-goody and repress the baddie-baddie. It doesn't work. It's not to move within that field of unconsciousness, because power trips there's no way out from them. This is, I think, the biggest misunderstanding in politics. There is no way out of power trips. The more you want to get out, the more you're in a power trip. Can you relate to that? Or?
What do you mean get out?
You cannot get out. You cannot fight your own power trips. But you can wake up. You can say, God, here I'm a murderer. I just killed 10 caterpillars when I cleaned that room. Honestly. Okay, I'm a murderer. Is that really who I am? That's an action. Is it conscious, unconscious? Not, there's many judgments around it on that level. But deeper than that, who or what is aware of this? That which is aware of a power trip cannot be a power trip. That which is aware of comparison cannot be in comparison. It is that which is aware of everybody sitting here cannot be every individual sitting here. It can be the space in where everyone is sitting. Is that too complicated? I think I lost a few here. So the attempt The wonderful attempt is to speak about something that is unspeakable and point towards something that has no form, which is you. The real you has no form. But we point to it each time we say I see, I feel, I sense, I know. There's always the I that is aware of the object or the sensory experience. Are you with me there? Come on! You can at least give me either this or this. Otherwise I kind of... No? Right? Here, around the world I cannot see you, but still you can do this or this.
They're all saying yes.
They all say, okay. Very good. So now, that kind of makes this a very potent potion. No? A ray of sunlight penetrating the misunderstandings and wars and violences and power trips over centuries. That ray of light of consciousness in the yellow can dispel all misunderstandings, not by pushing them away, but by awakening to the consciousness behind it. This is, I think, the story of the Bible, when, is it Saulus became Paulus? Or vice versa? Anybody really good in Bible stuff? No. Wrong crowd.
We need more of
Anyway, Saulus, if I understand it right, Saulus was a bad sinner and he did all sorts of terrible things. And then he met Jesus, pure consciousness, and he became one of the most important apostles, Paulus. No? Why? Because he became aware.
Saul.
Saul.
He rode to Damascus, and then he became
Paul.
Paul.
Yes.
Yeah.
Saul and Paul.
Saul.
Yeah. Saulus is the Saulus and Paulus is the
Saul.
the Latin
He was
part.
persecuting
Yeah.
And then he had
I had 9 years of Latin, so forgive me. Saul and Paul.
Yeah.
Okay. No? But I'm right, no? Paul was a good apostle. He was really...
He was the one that went out and took it everywhere, like all over.
Very good, yeah.
He was the bass player.
It was his fault because he got misunderstood. No? That's the thing. So shall we try? A ray of light. If you could all stand up, make your left palm available. And you get a drop of yellow. 3 drops into your palm. And when you receive them, rub them into your palms. And close your eyes. When you receive the yellow, let it kind of be like a tuning fork in your palms, an energy field that you can actually perceive and touch in your palm. You can allow, of course, your imagination that you're holding a wonderful ray of sunlight in your palms. And while you hold the yellow, just as you close your eyes, just get a get a moment, a sense of your solar plexus, of a deeper place within that is closer to you than all your protection mechanisms. And then you can raise your arms high above the head and your palms facing outward. Imagine you can send that yellow sunlight, that bright yellow light all around the world, touching all beings so that they may become aware of their suffering, of their power trips, and that they may begin to sense the joy of being. Energy follows thought, so quick as a flash we can create a net of yellow, beautiful sunshine light holding this planet Earth in a new strength that is not power over, it is power for. And then you can hold your palms above the crown, facing downward, and imagine you standing under this incredible bright shower of yellow light falling through your aura like gentle rain, just washing away all these protective mechanisms that then turn into power trips. And then as you come closer to the energy field around your head, you can clear and clean your aura through the temples, through the parietal, through the back of the head, through the frontal area, bringing your palms together above the crown, the symbolic gesture of oneness, where the opposites can meet as complementaries. And then moving through your third eye, here you can draw the curtain of your identifications and allow yourself to see clearly reality as it is. And then clearing your face and clearing your throat. Another curtain, the curtain of all your beliefs. Let it be drawn to the side so you can open to not knowing, to that space from where all creativity and all true expression arises. And clearing your shoulders and arms. And now when you come to the heart, allow that yellow ray to clear all these ideals and shoulds that we carry in front of the heart. The burden of morality. I'm not saying morality is bad, but when we are identified with it, we are covering the genuine nature of the heart. And then allow your hands to rest over your heart for a moment, absorbing that yellow ray deep in the silence of the heart, like a sunshine into the heart. And perhaps you can feel your heart responding to this energy. Feel how the heart can relax when there's no need to protect it, no need to encapsulate it or to hold back. And then as we move down, we can come to the solar plexus and just imagine that yellow light can melt all our strategies of separation. And like that, in the melting, they can become a doorway to our uniqueness. and to that natural power, which is the power of being, just being yourself, knowing you cannot be anybody else. And then moving through down to the second chakra, to the lower belly, bringing that sunlight into your deep sensitivity, your capacity to merge and melt with people and with nature, and your capacity to be alone. And then further down to the first chakra, the joy of consciousness in a body, the joy of having this unique physical body that can do so many things, and this wonderful sexual energy that is all the energy we have. And then along the legs, all the way down, connecting with Mother Earth. And this is a good moment to let go. Letting go anything that you identify with, any definition of yourself. Let it all go. Just become completely empty for a moment. Empty of story, empty of past, empty of future, empty of personality, just empty. And you will find, even when you're totally empty, you, the real you, are still here. Now, as you come up, allow that yellow light rise inside your body all the way up. For a moment, standing open as this being of light that is permeating the whole body. And then you can cup your hands in front of your nostrils and taking 3 deep breaths of the fragrance into the temple of the body. Very good. And then you can sit. So Steve has created a beautiful mandala, which is kind of the flowering that appears behind our identifications, and it's very beautiful. This one is called yesterday, today, tomorrow. Different expressions of the same flower, ever changing. Violet is the healing color. Pink is the color for unconditional love. Green is the color for a grounded heart. All that appears as we relax deeper than our need to identify. So I want to dedicate the light of the candle today to that pure light of consciousness within. And the meditation. So you can sit comfortably It's good if you have your spine upright so the energy can easily flow up and down and you can stay awake. Taking a few deep conscious breaths. Breathing in very deep, creating space in your lungs. And breathing out, letting go. And another deep breath. As much air as you can drink. And letting go. One more time. Deep breath. And letting go. And as the breath returns to its natural rhythm, stay aware of the breath. Let your attention move with the breath. The breath is a very, very simple and beautiful possibility to be present, because we can only ever breathe now, not before, not after, just now. So when our attention is with the in-breath, the turn of the breath, the out-breath, and the turn of the breath, we are very much present. And perhaps some of us may sense that the field of presence is like a different atmosphere than the field of thought and mind and story. Being present means we are in reality. We are here now. We're actually always here now. It is just the thought process, the story that appears to take us away from now until we remember, oh, I am here. And the body is a very beautiful anchor for here. Just feel all these different sensations that the body carries in this moment. And they are ever changing. Just like the breath is ever changing. And from the body and breath, when we understand that wherever our attention goes, that's where our energy flows, we can bring our relaxed attention to the heart. Just feel your heart. And don't choose how the heart is feeling right now. Maybe it feels open and relaxed. Maybe it feels tense and protective. Maybe it resonates with events that happened today or last week, and there's still the vibrations that can be felt in the heart. And this beautiful phenomenon, when we turn our attention to the heart, we also may become aware of the deeper qualities that the heart represents, like silence, like love, like compassion, like warmth. But you don't need to create all these. They are what emerges as we gently melt into the heart. So just feel what is here without choosing what should be here. And feel, since we have been present to the breath, feel how each in-breath touches the heart from inside. Perhaps even like a light. And how each out-breath is a letting go deeper inside. Deeper into the heart. And like this, in a way, we are becoming aware of different layers. The feeling side of the being is one layer in the heart. The compassion, the warmth, the heartfulness is another layer. And even deeper than that, where we can melt with each out-breath deeper, we're touching a realm that is deeper than thought and feeling. And deeper than emotion and body sensation. And deeper than the breath. And deeper than the heartbeat. And deeper than all experience. And then perhaps suddenly there's a recognition that every experience comes and goes in me. And what is this me? Formless, infinite, limitless awareness. And even these words can only point to what cannot be spoken. And perhaps some of us begin to be aware that there's a certain climate that appears not so personal, it's in the whole room, climate of silence, a climate of presence, a climate of love. Perhaps even a subtle joy for no reason. And strangely enough, we can melt deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and there's no end. Now, as the music fades away, we can move deeper into silence. We're just going to sit for about 15 to 20 minutes, allowing whatever comes to come and let it pass. And whenever you remember, keep your relaxed attention on that which is aware, on that which doesn't come and go, on that which doesn't have a form or a story. Rest as emptiness. feel this peace. It is always here behind all events. Feel this silence. It's always here behind all sounds. Feel this stillness behind all movement. Just being may provoke this subtle joy just for no reason, just because we are. And from the depths inside, you can take a deeper breath and just bring with you the grace, the beauty, the love, as you gently come back to the surface, maybe moving your body a little bit. Take in another deep breath until you find a good moment to open your eyes to a new moment here. And another deep breath and a good stretch back into this Buddha body. Very good. Anything to say, to share, to ask, to doubt, to declare. And the same invitation is for the friends around the world. If there's anything that you would like to comment or share or ask, please feel free.
what's happening in America, how that's linked to our identities.
If you haven't heard, Steve asked if I could talk more about what's happening in America around identities. I don't know what's happening in America because obviously the news is very biased, very unsure of what is true and what is not true. But what I find energetically is probably why the yellow came to me today. Energetically, I feel the old structures, the old egoic identifications get more and more difficult to hold. So it's almost like, the armor that we have been carrying individually and collectively, which is a certain identification as individuals, maybe our identification with the body, with our, race, with our looks, with all these things, and in the collective with our beliefs. It's all shaken up. And then, of course, around the body with COVID-19 and the fear that goes with it, because it is an amazing, beautiful situation, because the virus cannot be seen, it cannot be felt, it cannot be touched, it cannot be defined, and yet it's pretty much around. Yeah, I think it's a wonderful symbol. And even though, I feel very sorry that it creates so much suffering around the world, but it also seems to shake up everything we have believed to be so secure and so structured in an old way. And the new needs to come. It's like the phoenix needs to rise out of the ashes. Existence is so much more creative than we can believe. So what happens in America is basically an incredible shake-up of all these ideals about democracy, about anything, And it's a symptom. And then there is this global pandemic, and we're all hanging out or hanging in not knowing. Literally, I don't know how many friends here have been really intensely affected by the COVID situation. Maybe not negative, but maybe suddenly you're stranded. Like I used to travel the last 25 years, at least 7 months a year. I'm here, and I'm here, and I'm here. And it's amazing to be here. And I used to work a lot, and now I'm here. So, even if you think it doesn't affect you, it does affect you. No? We are not such islands, and so it's a wonderful test. And one of the tests, at least for me, is: can I rest more and more in being? Because that's all there is. I am. You are. We are. And the future that we felt so secure about doesn't exist. It has never existed. It was always an illusion. And the past that we created an identity from all the accumulations of whatever we accumulated. Wisdom, knowledge, money, possessions, all that is on very shaky feet. So it's fantastic. You can do Kundalini the whole day, shaking. Enjoying the aliveness of this moment because we don't know about the next one. We never knew about the next one. But now it's in our face. And I think it needed to come to such a drastic situation in America that we wake up. That we really look what is essential for me. Is it really essential to destroy, our food with glyphosate, for example? Glyphosate. Roundup. For what? No? I mean, I could say a few things around it, personally. Apparently, and this is, I used to be a doctor, so I'm a little bit interested in how can we, if we get COVID-19, how we can treat it. And there's a very cheap treatment that has been around since a long, long time. And the funny thing is that in Australia, it cannot be prescribed because the big pharma wants something else. It's quite amazing. Now, I don't know if it's factually true, but that hydroxychloroquine is a fantastic cheap thing that helped Trump to overcome his COVID-19 and helped many people. And I think Baba sent me this beautiful talk from this woman. Her name is Gold, no? It's a fantastic talk. She just speaks out the nonsense that is happening, that is so absurd. That we let people die because the big pharma wants to sell something where they can make money with, and a cheap remedy is not allowed to be. I tried to buy this yesterday and you cannot get it. You have to see a specialist, and then you have to have a special permission to get a medicine that in many countries is simply over the counter. You can buy it because it supports to heal malaria. Just this one little example is the absurdity of human greed and division becomes so absurd that it cannot hold. At least this is what I sense. So in a way we are quite lucky. And then of course we are very privileged here, to be in lockdown here versus in Shanghai or Beijing or Hong Kong or even Brisbane. Is it's difficult. But it makes, of course, the need to find other values or to find what is actually true within ourselves, to find that which actually doesn't know suffering. That which is aware of suffering is not suffering. That which is aware of problems is not a problem. And if everything else fails, that's the one of the only ways to stay sane. to recognize who we truly are. I don't know if that helps. Yeah. But even on that level, we're all on the same boat. No? And do you notice that somehow, I don't know, maybe it's just a personal experience, but somehow people around us are getting more friendly? Anybody has that? A little bit more loving, a little bit more, supportive. Or not? Maybe I'm kind of floating on a cloud here, but but it's. I see it. Okay, let's assume it's true. Then I see it as a response to a little bit less stress, because you cannot travel all around the world. You cannot, fulfill all the expectations in your job because whatever reason. There's many things you cannot do. So you have to relax. That's one of the things that I think are quite positive. You have to find ways to feel good without all the tricks that we learned, so that we can avoid our inner state by more excitement, by more novelty. No? And suddenly we are meditating. We're sitting here, you don't even have a question. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. And nobody is suffering. We are just sitting here in presence. If somebody else would ask you, well, what did you do in satsang? Oh, well, Rahasya talked a little bit, maybe too much. And otherwise we were not doing anything. We were sitting here. And the mind would say, how boring, how impossible, why would you do this? Reminds me of a saying from Osho, There's this old saying, why do you sit here? Do something. And Osho says, why do you do something? Sit here. And everything falls in place. No? If you don't have any questions, and if you guys around the world don't have any questions, then I'm really happy to sit in silence, to just see all of you beautiful people. But if you have something, yes!
Change the theme.
Change the theme. The theme, how my darling.
Hello.
So nice to see you.
Yeah.
You made it all the way here.
All the long distance from Lismore.
The long distance from Lismore, yeah, that's great.
Finding the words to... it's more a sharing and guidance.
Yeah.
And I think I've raised this with you before. It's talking about it came up when we were talking about the chakras and puberty and being such a difficult time, challenging time, and I'm just wanting to share it in relation to a personal situation for my 15-year-old grandson, who is seemingly on a very self-destructive path of choosing. I've definitely made a choice of drug use. Really being quite abusive to his body, and to people around him. And it's just I know it's really difficult for his family, his mother, and it's just sits very heavy in us all the time.
I understand. It is heavy, and there's nothing you can do on that level. You can only love him.
Yeah? That answer has come to me through much contemplation, and I sense generally that he is loved, and he's well loved.
Yeah.
And when you say love him in that sense of unconditional love, that moves into, well, do you just witness him just do this and let him be, let him just play it out, whatever needs to happen for him and his growth? Or what supports, what interventions?
It has many levels, many layers. No? I don't have an answer for this. I'm reminded of one of the discourses where Osho talked about Zen, even though it's not so factual, but I like that idea, In old Japan, apparently, maybe it was just Osho's device to tell us something, but he said, when you were destructive or mad or totally in your ego or self-destructive or a nuisance for society, they would take in modern society people go to a mental hospital or whatever, or they get into prison because they do something with drugs or steal. And in ancient Japan, they would just take the person to a Zen monastery, and they would, sit when the monks were chanting, and they would sit in their room, and there was no way. They were not allowed to get out. No? And eventually, the madness disappeared. So when I say love him, I don't mean, put sugar over shit, absolutely not. But there's a space that we all know within that is deeper even than the destructive habits. And so I would say one of the ways is you be at peace within yourself. You meditate. And then your response to him, I don't know a strategy. Of course, you can learn psychological strategies and communication and nonviolent communication, all these things. But what works, what seems to ultimately work is, I'm sure some of you have experienced this. You go in, you have all your doubts about everything, and you go in until you touch a place where suddenly something appears that I would call trust. You trust in existence. You trust that whatever happens, even though it appears absolutely horrible, is what it is.
Yeah.
It's okay seems to be, a duality between okay and not okay. There's a deeper level that recognizes that what is. It cannot be otherwise. And if that field of presence holds the guy, it doesn't mean you allow him to abuse you. It doesn't mean you allow him to be violent. But you have a spontaneous, intelligent response to now, rather than a preconceived program how to deal with it. No? And now is the only place where we can respond from intelligence. So I understand, when it affects everyone, then everyone needs to do dynamic meditation, for example.
I don't think his 4 or 5-year-old sister.
Yeah. So I don't have a recipe for it, but in my own experience with some people that I couldn't stand because they were kind of pushing my buttons. I often ended up doing nothing. And eventually in meditation, holding them in a space where even that is held. And there's quite a mystery about this, because we are all connected. And the more, he's in puberty, so he needs to provoke every single structure that seems to limit him. He's a rebel.
He's a Sagittarian.
He's a Sagittarian. So is Rahasya. So, if you read Glimpses of a Golden Childhood from Osho, and you see what he did with his family, when his mother, is totally overwhelmed with work, and she has I don't know how many children. Osho was not the only child, so the whole family was, and he get asked by his mother, can you go to the market and get some bananas? And Osho goes to the market and speaks to everyone, buys some bananas, and forgets the bananas in his bag, and at the end of the day, when it's already night and the bananas are totally quashed and mushed, he comes back home and delivers the bananas, and everybody gets totally furious about him. Now, what is his excuse, if you want an excuse, is I've been just present. And his other excuse is, well, I'm not your servant, because it came from an authority.
Yeah, he would.
And
he would say that.
Osho was one of these terrible people that could not. They smelled authority, 10 kilometers against the wind. If somebody was starting to come from above, even if it was right, he would never do it. Now he became one of the great masters, so who knows? No? It's probably more the question how the family survives it.
Oh, and how his body-brain will with drug use.
Yeah.
But I understand what you say about when there's the Zen place. When I lived in an ashram many years ago, we used to take in people who come from the local mental institution. They would stay for months, stop their medication, and just work and swim, and they became well.
Well,
but
you
they
see,
couldn't leave.
they couldn't leave.
But we don't have anything like that in our present society.
In this case, I think it would be very helpful if the family around him, meditates.
I do.
Yeah, you do, of course you do.
Yeah.
No? But maybe you can invite
more members.
more members to join you.
Okay.
No?
Thank you.
Sorry, I cannot give you a solution here.
It's not about a solution.
Yeah,
It's
I
about
know,
a sharing.
I know. But I think we all understand,
I think that our heads have been around it so many times.
Yeah.
It's more about it, just a sharing.
Yeah.
It's.
I mean, he's trying out to be somebody. Everybody, every kid is trying out in all sorts of ways to be something, somebody. And the more you recognize you can be nobody, maybe that could be a very new approach. Yeah. Thank you. Lovely to see you.
Good to be with you.
Yes. Thank you, beloveds. It's always a blessing to sit with you, whether there's a few people or the full room. It's wonderful. Now, if you like meditation, there will be on Sunday evening at 8 o'clock an online meditation, but you will that a Swedish group of friends is organizing. So they're creating a whole new Facebook group and a whole thing with and I will have regular meditations, and also eventually I recorded 68 videos called the Online Training for Conscious Living, if that would be interested for any one of you, or actually join the next 2 Sunday evenings as a Zoom meditation on Zoom. Please, hopefully you have all filled in your address and your phone number. Please also, if you're interested in that, fill in your email address and do a little, maybe a little hook that you're interested in, mail out. Then I will mail you an invitation to register. It's for free to register for these next 2 meditations. And last Sunday was very, very beautiful. So the next meditation will be the Atisha meditation, 8 o'clock in the evening Sunday. So if you would like to join that, let me know.
Maria's posted the link to this new group called Awakening with Rahasya.
Okay, there's a oh great, there's a Facebook group. And then, so that's on Sunday. On Tuesday, dear Greg is here from the Temple Byron, and on Tuesday I have a meditation with blessing the chakras, which is a beautiful meditation, and it gives a pointer towards some Tantra teachings, because I have an upcoming Tantra for Couples course, The Art of Love and Intimacy, in March, and I was asked, can you do an open evening? So this is not a Tantra open evening, but we will point towards it, and then there will be eventually an isolated event in Temple Byron, just focused on the art of love and intimacy. But it's not only for couples, it's also for singles. No? So stay tuned.
What time is that?
What time is that? 6:30 in Temple Byron. Come a little bit earlier. No? On Tuesday, Temple Byron. You know where Temple Byron is? It's an amazing...
The big one, and then you're...
It depends a little bit. Greg, do they have to...
We're trying to contain things in the Rahasya.
So...
Control crowds, but we're going over numbers just about every week. We're turning people away. So if people want to be on that mailing list, they need to let me know so they get a tip off because we're emailing out the MailChimp.
Yeah.
We do that Saturday night,
Yeah.
and then I hold off going on Facebook because I want people in the MailChimp list,
Yes.
the locals, the tribe, to get priority over the movie stars.
Ah.
Did I really say that? So it doesn't go on Facebook till on Sunday. And the
Okay.
intent is that I want a lag period.
Yeah.
So if you want the main hall, if the numbers justify the main hall, you and I will have a conversation.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Anyway, thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. There's tea and cookies out there. And next Friday, satsang here. So no end to meditation. Thank you, and thank you all around the world.